You're tuned to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is my review of HE and heat ammo. The reason I'm doing this is because it can be quite confusing as to when to use HE, when to use heat, and what kind of tanks it works on and doesn't work on. What I've done is I've put together a bunch of very short clips all bunched together of just me hitting other tanks with HE and heat ammo, and so you can see what damage it does to those tanks. I've got 33 different tanks that I'm hitting. Some of them I managed to hit with HE and heat, so you get to see both. Some of them are just HE, some are just heat. Sorry, I couldn't get all of them tanks. It took ages to put all this together, I can tell you. The tank I am using is the KV1, it's a tier 5 tank. The KV1, I'm using a HE heat exclusive gun, so this gun cannot use armor piercing or armor piercing composite rigid ammunition. For those of you who aren't sure, HE stands for high explosive and HEAT stands for high explosive anti-tank. Give you an idea, if we have a look at this gun, this is a 122mm gun which only fires HE and heat. The HE ammo has a penetration value of 61 and a damage of 450. The heat ammunition has a higher penetration, 140, but doesn't do as much damage at 370. Generally, guns that fire exclusively HE and heat have a poor accuracy, and the KV1 is a good example with .57. It's very poor accuracy, so you've got to use this thing in close range. At long range, it's very hard to hit anything. Now, that penetration of 61, now normal armor piercing shell, if you fire it into a tank and the tank's armor is greater than 61, your shell will never penetrate unless you manage to get to a weak spot or something like that. HE is different. If their armor is less than 61 and it can punch through, it will do the full 450 points of damage. But if their armor is, say, 100, some of that explosive will be used up to get the rest of the penetration. So we've got 61 penetration. To get the other, say, 40 penetration, some of the explosive power will be used up, and you may find that if they've got 100 armor and you hit them with a shell, you might do 200 damage because a lot of the explosive power is used up to get through the rest of the armor. If they had, say, 200mm of armor, you might find you just cannot get through it. The armor is just too thick and the explosives all used up trying to get through the armor, and you do no damage whatsoever. In that case, say the armor's, I don't know, 200mm thick or 150mm thick, in that case you can use the heat ammunition with the higher penetration. And say if it's 200mm of armor, you hit it with a 140, it will use up some of the explosive to get through still, and you might do 100 damage to it, something like that. Or sometimes you might hit, say, a higher level tank, like maybe one of the IS-3 or something like that. You might do 10 or 20 damage to it, something very minimal even. But if you hit something like another KV1, you may do 300 damage to it. Whereas if you hit it with HE, you might only do 40 damage to it, or maybe 100 damage to it. So if they have very poor armor, use HE. But if they have good armor, use the heat. In the case of the KV1 here, to give you an idea, any tier 4 tank, I would use HE. In tier 5, which the KV1 is a tier 5 tank, I would use it on other KV1s, Churchills, or any other tier 5 heavy I would use heat on. But I wouldn't waste on anybody else. Any tier 5 mediums, just use HE, because their armor's not that thick, you'll do a lot of damage with just HE. When it gets to tier 6, any heavies or closed top tank destroyers, I would use heat. Any mediums, even at tier 6, I would still just use HE. You can still do reasonable damage, like a KV1S, you might still do 100 damage to it with heat, but you'll do more like 300 damage to it with heat. With heat you'll do more like 300 damage to it. With HE you'll probably only do about 100 damage to something like a KV1S. Now, that said, if then you get to this is a tier 5 tank, so you will face tier 7s. A tier 7, I would just use heat on any tier 7. because at the mediums at tier 7 the armor can be quite thick, especially at the front. So yeah, but any open top tank destroyer, well, you'll just HE is generally speaking fine. That's a rough guide anyway. Now the video that you're about to see will give you a pretty good idea of that anyway. If you can't see the damage because they're pretty quick snippets, one of the mods I'm running in most of the clips, if you look at the top left of the screen, it will show you what the damage was, and yeah, it'll list the tank name and what damage was done to it. So if you don't see the damage straight away on the screen, if it's a bit small or something, you can look up in the top left and it should tell you there the damage that's done to the tank. Without any further ado, let's get in and watch all the blasting. Okay, I forgot to mention, the way I've organised it is, you'll see a whole bunch of tanks getting hit, and they'll be getting hit first up with HE ammo. Then the word heat will flash up on the screen, and you'll see a bunch of tanks getting hit with heat. So I've separated it that way. So from the start, it'll all be HE. Then the word heat will flash up a screen, and it'll all be heat ammo. Thank you.
Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Enemy armor is just got him. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. We're immobilized. Critical hit. Critical hit. We're critical hit. Drive on. Track hit. Critical hit. Enemy armor is destroyed. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Enemy armor is destroyed. Critical hit. Critical hit. Enemy armor is destroyed. They're knocked down. Enemy vehicle destroyed. Critical hit. Track hit. Gotcha. Device is damaged. Visibility decreased. Enemy armor is destroyed. Critical hit. We've torched them. Enemy armor is destroyed. Our main gun is damaged. Critical hit. Critical hit. Got him. We're immobilized. Enemy armor is destroyed. The rangefinder took critical penetrates their armor. Penetration. Enemy vehicle destroyed. Enemy is hit. We didn't even scratch them. One of our tracks is... Enemy is hit. Enemy on fire. We didn't penetrate their armor. Enemy vehicle destroyed. Penetration. Enemy armor is hit. They're knocked out. We've lost a track. Enemy armor is hit. We're done for. Everyone get out. Got him. Track repair. Drive. Gotcha. Penetration. Enemy vehicle destroyed. Enemy armor is hit. Enemy is hit. We didn't penetrate their armor. Gotcha.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work to put together, but I think it's worth it to give everyone a good idea of how the ammunition works and what kind of armor it works well against, and even where you hit. I mean, if you hit, like you saw that AMX, when I hit the front of it, it had very good armor, it just bounced. When I hit the side of it, it just about blew it apart. So it does depend where you hit to. Great, like on this tank, it's great at close range, but please don't try and hand back and snipe. You won't hit anything and you'll just get blown away. You've got to be close. I hope this helped you. If it did help you and you like it, please give me a thumbs up, because there's a lot of bloody work involved in putting this together. And if you'd like to see more of my videos and tank reviews, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Thank you and have fun.